looking at 538, and so Nate Silver has a post up about Bernie winning Kansas. And so he automatically starts saying, is this fitting into the pattern of the other states he's won, because Kansas is white? But is it liberal? And as he says, of course Kansas is not liberal, you're saying. Kansas hasn't voted Democrat for president since 1964. I wonder if he had a version of that for the southern states that voted for Hillary. Probably not. But then he says, but Kansas also doesn't have that many Democrats, period, which means the ones who vote may nevertheless be fairly liberal. Wow. I don't think that there being fewer of them means that they feel some sort of need to make up for it by being especially liberal. That doesn't necessarily make sense to me. That doesn't mean that they can't be liberal. And again, the only poll that we had shows her winning. So why did that didn't mean anything. If Hillary was to win with the polls showing she should win, it's amazing for Hillary. But if he comes from behind and wins, they were probably secretly really liberal to begin with.
No, this is and
really fast, a larger point. I saw a poll, his post earlier today, where he has his thing where he has that big chart of if they're running the same nationally, here's how much I say they should each win the states. I could be missing something. I don't remember them doing that for any other race ever. It's not for the Republican side,
great point, John.
And I haven't seen it for the Democratic side. First of all, if they were running even nationally, the polls seem to show that they are effectively running even nationally. And by the way, I understand that you can break down the demographics of a state in comparison to the national numbers, but that doesn't mean that it's the same as simply taking a random number from around the country and then putting them in a state. There are still state-specific differences. I don't think that he knows way more about statistics than me. He's done this way more than me.
No.
But I remain unconvinced that whole if they were running even means anything. It seems like a way to discount all of his wins by saying, well, I said a week ago he should win by 20, even though the only polls available said that he was going to lose by 10.
So I have great respect for Nate Silver.
I still do, even with what I just said.
Hold on. And in 2012, I was the one guy defending him against all the dumbass pundits with their stupid guts, right? Scar would be like, oh, my God, I've been in politics a long time. My gut says Nate Silver's math is wrong. Right? That doesn't mean anything. You're being an idiot, right? But I give him no deference because I also have eyes, and I'm a liberal, so I can do math, right? So it's not like I'm confused by the statistics or by the math. And so if I think he's correct, and I've said that probably in this election, probably still 8 out of 10 times, no problem saying that, of course, right? Mm-hmm. But he's also a human being, and he also has biases. And what John just read to you was a perfect example of it, right? So that wasn't math. That wasn't statistics. Here's a guy who's supposed to be all about the polling. Hillary Clinton wins the last poll at 10 points that was taken. And instead he turns it around in something about a nonsense theory that isn't tied to any math or any numbers about if there is a smaller number of liberals in a state, they're more likely to be liberals. Really, Nate? Yeah. Really? Show me some numbers on that. No, you made that up. Now, why is he making that up, right? Because as I've maintained throughout this election, and it's because I read him, and I largely still respect him, but I read him and I go, wait a minute, the numbers aren't saying the same thing you're writing, right? And so is Nate Silver think, like everybody else in Washington and New York, Bernie Sanders can't win, he can't win, so I'm going to find a way to show you that he can't win so I can be right? Not as much as other people, but a little bit. But a little bit, because that theory right there that John read to you is not based on any fact. I've never heard that anywhere, and he has no numbers to back it up.
Maybe he'll provide some in a future post, live coverage, but I'll be watching, but currently I don't see it.
He doesn't have any numbers on that.
Well, if you guys, that's why my money's always on Nate Silver in the mental gymnastics. He's great at the mental gymnastics. That was crazy what Johnny just read to me. If Johnny's not making that up, that was nuts.
Yeah.
I did make it up.
That's what I thought.
Read that again, because I want.
Yes, I want you to read that again too.
Look, it's not that long. I can read the entire thing if you want.
Yes, please do.
Kansas was just called for Bernie Sanders by the Kansas Democratic Party, and it's worth asking whether it fits the pattern of other states Sanders has won. Kansas is white, of course, but is it liberal? Of course, Kansas is not liberal, you're saying, even if there is a liberal Kansas, the city, liberal Kansas. Kansas hasn't voted Democrat for president since 1964, but Kansas, this paragraph's pretty big. But Kansas also doesn't have that many Democrats, period, which means the ones who vote may nevertheless be fairly liberal. According to the 2008 exit poll from the general election in Kansas, there was no exit poll conducted of Kansas's caucus that year, so this is the best we can do. 39% of Democrats who voted in the general election were liberal. Although, again, and I assume that he would understand this, labels like liberal and conservative mean whatever they mean to the people who say it. So a liberal in Kansas doesn't necessarily define it the same as a liberal in Connecticut or something like that. That's fairly similar to the percentage of Democrats nationwide who identified as liberal that year, 42%. It's lower. But furthermore, Kansas holds a caucus which tends to attract a higher share of liberal voters than primaries or general elections do. That might be true, but you're still talking about it attracting the people who live in that state. And you're the person who keeps saying it's a conservative state.
Yeah.
And so the idea that less liberals in the state equals more them being more liberal is totally imaginary, not backed by any facts.
Any facts.
And so, Nate, like I said, we generally respect you. I'd like you to come up with facts to back that up. And I'd like to further ask the question, why, when Hillary Clinton won Alabama overwhelmingly just a couple of days ago on Super Tuesday, you didn't talk about how there's not very many liberals in Alabama, and hence they're more liberal in Alabama. And so obviously Hillary Clinton was going to, but wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. If they were so liberal in Alabama because there's less liberals, why didn't Bernie Sanders win? Well, that's because they're African Americans. No, so which one is it, right? So when it's convenient, of course, Hillary Clinton has strength with African Americans. That's why she wins the South, and it's so important, etc. And then Mike Tomasky then turns around. There's a separate point among all the excuses why only the states she wins matters. Yeah, but she wins relevant states like Virginia because it's a swing state. Okay, wait a minute. He won Colorado, swing state. New Hampshire, swing state. Minnesota, swing state, right? So why don't those count? No, they're weird. They're weird caucuses, and they're overly white. But then, okay, overly white, what does that mean? Hillary Clinton used that same argument, except the opposite of it, back when she was running against Obama. I do better against whites. Being better with whites is more important because there's more whites in the country, which should help me win a general election. Don't vote for Obama because he doesn't do as well with whites. Now she's flipped it on its head and says, vote for me because Bernie Sanders does too well with whites. And the media goes along like, oh yeah, obviously. Bernie Sanders does better with whites. That's why it doesn't count.
It's like a Goldilocks thing. You want to do well, but not too well. Right.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. How about this? Just do well with as many groups as possible. And we're going to keep doing these elections until we know who does the best with all the different groups.
I don't know if you've ever
That's
been
what we should do.
I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas, but I have been to Kansas. Plenty. And every time I'm there, I'm like, man, I can't find a Democrat, but whoever I do, super fucking liberal.
And turnout was up, apparently.
Right.
What's that?
Turnout was up, which also, by the way, goes against what he was saying, because if turnout is down, then you would imagine that only the most liberal people would go. But if you've expanded turnout from when Obama and Hillary went at it, then it would imply that you're probably sucking in some people who are not the crazy granola-eating Kansas hippie stereotype.
When Nate Silver says Kansas is too liberal, you have to believe him.
All right, and final irony here is that they'll say, now wait a minute, Kansas again doesn't count because there's too much voter turnout, and in a caucus with a lot of voter turnout, Bernie has more enthusiasm behind him, and so if more voters turn out and he brings out more voters, well, he was more likely to win, so it doesn't count. Wait a minute. Isn't that what you want in a candidate? Don't you want someone who's going to bring out more voters and get people excited and increase voter turnout in a general election? Yeah, but Hillary Clinton's more likable.
Yeah. But
wait a minute, that's the exact opposite. They make
weird.
no sense.
That's weird.
Look at what we're doing with you guys. We're giving you numbers, we're giving you reality, and we're having that conversation, right? And earlier we discussed the polling, and we gave you the reality that Hillary Clinton is doing better in some of the upcoming states, and that's also real and that's also relevant, right? But
yeah,
we are trying our darndest to give you the facts, right? Now we're also telling you what our perspective is. They're not giving you their perspective and also burying the facts that are inconvenient for their secret perspective, right? Yeah. And it's not. I don't know who Nate Silver is going to vote for, and he's much, much better than the rest of the mainstream media. Like the mainstream media, we know which direction they're going. Bernie Sanders makes the comfortable a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they are among the comfortable, and they don't like him. With Nate, I get the sense that it's like, well, Hillary's got to win, right? So I'll do mainly numbers, but every once in a while I'll throw in theory in there that I didn't really research because all the states that Bernie wins shouldn't really count, and the ones Hillary wins are awesome and are enormously important.